Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and it's time for some Week 2 props. Oh boy, we're excited. What a fun show it was yesterday with our best bets with Moneyline Monaco. In case you missed that, go back and watch that. But we got a fantastic show for you today. We've got our 10 favorite props for Week 2. And of course, the prop prophet is joining us, Andrew Erickson. That's right, his new nickname. The shirt should be out any day now. Can't wait for it. And also joining us as a guest, which is great because we're turning the tables finally on this guy because I'm always on his show. He's my colleague over at Sports Grid. In case you don't know what Sports Grid is, that wagering network on the television screen, on your radio, everywhere. He's the host of The Morning After and also a former quarterback himself from California, from Calabasas, no doubt. Also, so here's my question for you, Ben Stevens. Being a young man, a young athlete in Calabasas, how did you avoid dating a Kardashian, or did you not?
It was difficult. It was difficult. They're always out there, but they don't often go for the backups. They go for the starters. And when you were third string, elevated to second string during your senior year of high school, you don't often get the best and the brightest. But hey, we learned a lot on the hard streets of Calabasas. I'm lucky to be here today. Lucky to be joining both of you here on this show.
Erickson, you know what that's like. I mean, you couldn't get the higher level Mercedes either. You had to go for that second tier down. You know, those are the hard things, you know, in the Calabasas lifestyle. But Erickson, last week, you crushed it with the props, and you got to feel pretty confident going into Week 2, right? All the research is up over at bettingpros.com, right? The new article is up. So how has that Week 2 transition from Week 1 gone for you?
I feel good. Like, I feel confident, even more than last week, where you have some player usage that I don't think the books are necessarily catching eyes on. Like things that we're looking at specifically for fantasy. This is why player props is a really great market to bet if you are coming over from the fantasy realm, because you know how these players are being used. I know how many routes these players are running per drop back, and that's not always necessarily in the certain lines with some of these players, especially when guys coming off bad weeks. So it's like, hey, the usage was there. Let's buy the dip on a certain player.
Fantasy, the gateway drug to gambling. There we go. We're sports wagering here. And before we get into the props for Week 2, because I know the boys have a great list for you, I don't want to be remiss here to mention our James Cook giveaway. That's right. We're not giving away James Cook, just his jersey, just to be clear. So an autographed James Cook jersey from the Buffalo Bills can be yours. All you have to do is subscribe to our Betting Pros channel, click the bell till it goes ding, and drop a comment below. That's it. Real easy, but again, don't forget to click that bell so you know if you're the big winner of the James Cook jersey. Again, this is courtesy of Betting Pros. It's free. It's fun. Go win yourself a jersey. We just gave away that Aaron Jones one yesterday, so it's a beautiful thing. Go win this one. All right, gentlemen, let's start here with our guest, Ben Stevens from The Morning After. Give me your first of many props for Week 2 that you got your eye on.
All right, first of many. Until they stop being disrespectful to Justin Fields, I'm going to take the over every time. The odds makers looked at last week where it was 178.5 and said to themselves, oh, he threw for 216 yards against the Green Bay Packers. Some of that, of course, game script dependent, as Chicago as a team did not look good, and the Bears scoring defense that ranked in the bottom of the National Football League last year still gave up 38 points to the Packers. But he threw for 216 yards over a measly prop of 178.5. And the odds makers said to themselves, you know what? Despite the over clearing by nearly 30 yards, 40 yards even, let's drop it down to 169.5 against the Buccaneers, who allowed 344 to Kirk Cousins and Minnesota a week ago, 44 pass attempts for the Vikes. I don't know if Chicago will ever go north of 40 pass attempts, but it's 169.5. And as long as they continue to discredit Justin Fields, my biggest worry is Luke Getsy holding him back as the offensive play caller. But as long as the odds makers continue to keep the props disrespectfully low on Justin Fields, as he will work to prove he is the face of the franchise in Chicago, I will say thank you. I will take the over. Justin Fields over 169.5 passing yards against Tampa Bay.
One of our favorite picks yesterday was the Bears on the money line. In case you missed that show, go watch it. We talked about that. Look, some teams just aren't as bad as they seem Week 1 and aren't as good as they seem Week 1 too. We've learned that the hard way in the last, 40 years of watching football for me. I'm old, not like these two guys. All right, let's get to you, Andrew Erickson. Give me the first of the props for Week 2 you got your eye on.
Well, we're going to stick with the Bears here. You know, mine as well. Maybe we can do a little parlay action. I'm going DJ Moore.
There we go.
DJ Moore over 3.5 receptions at plus money, plus 110 at BetMGM. Look, DJ Moore is a full-time player in this offense. He had 2 targets in Week 1, was erased by Jaire Alexander. It's not going to happen in Week 2. Like, he has played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers numerous times. And every time he has played their defense in their secondary with Todd Bowles, this blitz-heavy scheme, he has toasted them. Last time he played them, 117 yards on 6 catches, 10 targets with a touchdown. He's going to have a big week. The Buccaneers allowed a ton of yardage to the Vikings in week 1, as we alluded to already. 242 receiving yards, 2 wide receivers specifically. Are we going to go 2 straight weeks of DJ Moore not seeing heavy targets when you have Chase Claypool, who is basically dogging it out there, not even blocking? DJ Moore is going to have a massive bounce-back game. The fact you get this at plus money over 3.5 receptions, let's go.
After that effort, and I use the word effort with the smallest possible lowercase e I could possibly find with Chase Claypool, I don't know how that guy's still on the team. I would have cut that guy Sunday night after looking at that tape. I don't understand how that works, but I'm with you 100% on DJ Moore. I know Debro and I have our DFS show on Fridays on AMP, and I'm telling you right now, we're going to be talking about DJ Moore and this bounce back because the roster percentage is going to be low, and on top of that, you're also going to get the upside of that overcorrection of, we didn't get this guy the ball enough. Why didn't we do that last week? Let's go do it this week, and he's super cheap. Ben Stevens, you're expensive. You're not cheap. I had to pay a lot to get you on the show today. Let's get to you for another prop. What do you have?
It was like my Mercedes-Benz as soon as I turned 16 years old in Calabasas. That's how expensive I am. Anyway, my second prop of the week, I do not believe the number is out just yet. I think when I sent them over in the rundown to you, I had an eye on Jalen Waddle. I'm a little bit concerned for Sunday Night Football and the weather expected in the greater New England area come Sunday night against New England. But he was the discounted number last week for the Dolphins against the Chargers. His number was 64.5, and he went over, finishing north of 80 yards. I thought there was a discount based on Tyreek Hill being that premium price. And of course, Tyreek had 11 grabs for 215 yards. Screw the discount or the premium price. They'll both go over. I would also keep an eye on Calvin Ridley. So I'll focus there because I know that prop is out in some places. It's 66.5 for Calvin Ridley against Kansas City. Last week, it was 63.5 in the debut in a Jaguars uniform against the Indianapolis Colts. He had 8 grabs, 11 targets, 101 yards, and a touchdown. I bet Ridley to go over his season-long prop of 5.5 receiving scores. He already has 1 after 1 week. I think it will be an offensive game, the highest total on the board, 51 in a hook from the over-under for the Jags and the Chiefs. Give me Calvin Ridley over 66.5 receiving yards against KC.
Music to my ears. I've got so much Calvin Ridley. It's just fantastic. And I love it. Look, I understand, people are hesitant. I get why. But at a certain point when you're watching him in the preseason and watching all the stuff going on out of camp, you had to start buying in. And I know it got expensive, but that's okay. We buy anyway. Andrew Erickson, who else are you buying here in week 2?
Going back to the Stone Cold Lock of the week. Last week it was Deshaun Watson.
Nailed it.
Over 23.5 rushing yards. They've moved the line a grand total of 1 yard. 24.5 rushing yards for Deshaun Watson now, his rushing prop. So I'm just going to keep hammering the over until the books adjust. Caesars, it's minus 115. And again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Look, he's averaged 30 rushing yards per game since becoming the Browns' starting quarterback last season. The Steelers, as bad as they played against the 49ers, the one thing they did was rush the passer. They had a 55% pressure rate. What does that mean? Deshaun Watson's going to be scrambling again against the Steelers defensive line. So I just think it's a no-brainer. He rushed for 45 yards in week 1 in a non-competitive game. Like, he's looking to run more than he is to throw on a lot of his dropbacks. So I think Watson over 24.5 rushing yards. Guys, just keep betting it until they change it.
I did a TikTok today, Erickson, which is something I never thought I would say to you, but I did a TikTok today about Deshaun Watson, and Richardson's ranked as QB9 on FP right now, and somehow Deshaun Watson's not in the top 12, and I'm like, I don't understand that. If we love the Richardson upside, he was QB4 last week, and Watson was QB5, and he ran for 45 yards. Now he's playing the Steelers that gave up, 17 quarterback points to Brock Purdy? So doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that ranking at all, so... Again, follow me on the TikTok. Very famous there. The kids love me. All right, Ben Stevens, everybody loves you. Before we get to the next one of yours, I want to remind everybody, too, we've got an NFL contest going on here on Betting Pros. So if you haven't already, make sure you join it. It's fun. It's free. All you have to do is pick 5 games a week, 100 on the whole season. That's not a lot. So don't worry about it. Again, did I mention it's free? Download the BP app. go to the community tab, join the NFL contest, or just go to bettingpros.com/NFL contest. Grand prize winner gets a Jackson Smith and Jigba autographed jersey, but we're also doing weekly prizes, monthly prizes, FP swag, Betting Pros swag, and we're also doing free premium upgrades to FP and BP. So get on that, bettingpros.com/NFL contest. Back to you, Ben Stevens, with a prop for week 2 in the NFL.
I'm going to go to an anytime touchdown prop up next. Now, a TD scoring prop is still a rather random thing, right? You're not necessarily going to always hit the end zone, even if you have a good game. Look at Justin Jefferson, for instance, in his 2 games so far this year for Minnesota, 150 or more receiving yards, but hasn't found the end zone just yet for the Vikes. But there was a touchdown connection that started between a young quarterback that you mentioned already, Joe P., in Brock Purdy, and another Iowa guy in George Kittle last year. In the final 5 games that Brock Purdy started in the regular season, the last 4 for San Francisco, he found George Kittle for 7 touchdowns. That Cy-Hawk connection is strong. Brock Purdy losing a bet to George Kittle, the Iowa Hawkeye. Brock Purdy, the Iowa State Cyclone, having to wear the Iowa Hawkeye mascot head out to a news conference earlier in the week, previewing the game against the Rams. George Kittle only had 3 grabs, I think for less than 20 yards week number 1 against the Steelers, despite the offensive performance and really the dominant performance overall the 49ers put on. But he was targeted 6 times. So if you're looking for an anytime TD scoring prop, I would look at George Kittle. It's a fat plus money price, plus 195. That is my 3rd prop for this NFL Sunday.
That's a really good one, too. And you mentioned as well that you also had that flourish to the season last year, the end, where George Kittle was just scoring touchdowns at an alarming rate in the fantasy space. And this is what we talk about always, that connectivity, right? If you're playing George Kittle in DFS and fantasy and you're paying attention to him there, why aren't you investing in it? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to drag over all that work that you're doing in the fantasy space over into the prop market, and you might as well be completely invested in it if you think it's a good play. Andrew Erickson, you have another good play for us too in week 2. Who do you have?
Yep. You know, someone has to come with at least one under, and I know I did last week, and it burst
Life's
into
too
flames
short for unders. Scott Bogman says that all the time on the channel.
I like turning on the game and being like, I'm already winning. Like, I'm winning right as the under starting. So Drake London under 49.5 receiving yards. Look, Drake London has gone under this number in 11 straight games that he and Kyle Pitts have played together. So not only does Drake London have an Arthur Smith problem, because Arthur Smith claims London doesn't care that he doesn't get targets, because after a player doesn't get targeted at all in their game, usually the coach comes out and says, okay, we're going to get this guy more involved. Not the case with Arthur Smith in this Falcons offense. Like, no, he doesn't care. Like, we're good. He just wants to win. So that's why I'm going under here. We saw Bears wide receiver DJ Moore get erased by this Green Bay defense with Jair Alexander. Like, it's going to be the exact same story again with Drake London. And it's not like we've seen Drake London have productive stretches when Kyle Pitts has been healthy. Like, he has been underwhelming, especially where the number here is at 49.5. Like, it's just too high. So I'm going under here with Drake London, and just going to continue to cry about him in my fantasy leagues.
Yeah,
where I still have him.
I do understand that. I'm going to pass you a Kleenex. This is depressing, but I think a really good one. And if you're going to pick an under this week, this one to me makes the most sense. I think Andrew's 100% right there. And it is depressing, Andrew, because this is not about hating the player. It's about hating the situation. And it doesn't seem like anytime soon this is a number that you would probably set as an over until it starts dropping to almost an alarming rate. So what would that number have to be? What would that have to look like to you, Erickson, before we start looking at overs? Like getting like 35? Like, is that where we got to get to here?
Yeah, I think that's where you're at, because you're hoping that he, on limited volume, is able to make a play or break off a big pass attempt. But Drake London's not like this massive yak receiver, so that hurts him. Like, how many yards can he create after the catch? And Desmond Ritter's not a good downfield passer. So, like, you know, Kyle Pitts hit it last week because he made like this amazing catch down the field on an inaccurate throw by Desmond Ritter. So Pitts, you know, I give credit to him. He beat me last week, but I'm going to double down against the Falcons.
Did you hear D-Bro's new name for him, by the way? Desmond Mitter, because he's mid. That's his new one. So we're carrying that over. It's not bad. Yeah, it came out on the live stream on Tuesday, so we're going to roll with it for the rest of the week. All right, Ben Stevens, let's get back to you here for another one of the props. And then just a reminder, too, on some of these games that you might be looking for, make sure you set those notifications on the BP alerts on the app, too. That's a really good way to stay on top of it. You can also follow Erickson at bettingpros.com/Erickson or /Joe. Any of us fits. We're all on there, so you can see what we're betting every single week, too. And don't forget to sync all your sports books, too. That's the plus of that BP app. You can get the best lines all in one spot there. You get the notifications notifications. You can track your own bets. You can also look at who's doing really well in the market too, which is super helpful and very efficient. If you are still new to this, or if you're a grizzled veteran, you just want to make some more money, go find the people that are red hot right now. Like Ben Stevens. That guy's always hot. He's hotter than Hansel, I hear. Ben Stevens, back to you with another pick for week 2. What do you have?
Amon-Ra St.Brown over his total receptions prop that is listed at 6.5. Now, he did go slightly under week number 1 in the debut against Kansas City. 6 grabs, 71 yards, and a touchdown, but was targeted 9 times. In fact, last year with Jared Goff as his quarterback, he was targeted 146 times. That was 9th most in the National Football League with 116 grabs, also a top 10 number. I think we are going to see some points between Seattle and Detroit, as we have every time these two teams have faced each other as of late, including 93 a year ago, 48-45, the victory for Seattle week number 4 in Detroit. The total 47.5. They air it out. Detroit does. I think we see more targets for Amon-Ra St.Brown, over 6.5 receptions for Amon-Ra in the matchup against Seattle.
Yeah, last Thursday it wasn't for lack of trying to get Amon-Ra above that 6 number, that's for sure. They certainly targeted him enough, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Andrew Erickson, let's go to you. This one a little bit outside the box. I like that about you. I like what you're doing here. So let's talk about CJ Stroud. What do you have?
Yeah, well, I'm going to fade the narrative of CJ Stroud coming out of college where, oh, this guy can't run. This guy's a statue. He's Jared Goff. No, he's not. Like, he is way more mobile than you're going to give him credit for. We saw it last week in week 1. CJ Stroud, 4 scrambles for 20 yards. His current rushing yards prop bet is set at 12.5 rushing yards. I like the over in this game between the Colts and Texans. I think it could get wild between these two dynamic playmaking rookie quarterbacks. And I think Stroud is going to go over the rushing yards prop again because the Houston Texans don't have a great offensive line. They're going to be putting him into situations where he has to make plays with his legs. Texas saw last week, gave up 38 rushing yards to Lamar Jackson. So CJ Stroud, the books still think that he's Jared Goff 2.0. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. He's a pocket passer, can't move. Wrong. Put on the tape. Put on the tape, sports books. Watch CJ Stroud. He's making plays with his legs.
Man.
Over.
Calling people
12.5
out.
rushing yards.
Look at this. I got a question for you, Erickson. Is it just me, or is this like the morbid curiosity game of the week for you? I like this name on paper. You look at it and you go, I don't want to see that. But then there's another part of me goes, I kind of want to watch this one. I kind of want to see what these two guys do. Do you feel that same way? Ben Stevens, do you feel that same way?
I certainly do.
Right?
When you see 1.5 total, one of these rookie quarterbacks has to get their first NFL career victory in the total 39.5, 1.5 spread. The Texans a slight favorite. I really like what we saw out of Anthony Richardson, by the way, in his NFL debut. I thought there were some glimpses there of AR where if you watched him in college at Florida, the exciting with the unpredictable at times. I think he, more than most, probably wants Jonathan Taylor back alongside him. Was the Colts' leading rusher last week against Jacksonville. 10 carries, 40 rushing yards. His prop this week already up from 38.5 when it opened to 40.5, but did score a touchdown. They love that big physical frame. 6'5", 245, 250. His anytime touchdown prop a little bit juicy as well. Plus 200 if you're trying to find that sprinkle of plus money anytime TD. But yeah, excited to see this game. 2 rookie quarterbacks, 2 top 5 picks. Somebody's got to win.
Well, they could tie. I don't want to put the cold water on.
Oh, that's the worst. Don't do that.
Nice 12-12. There you go. There's your tie.
Was that the Jet? Yeah, it was something last year. Was the first game the Colts tied the Texans?
I think it
week
was.
Number 1?
I think it was in week 1 or week 2. It was early. It was definitely early.
Yeah.
It's so hard to remember anything from like last week, let alone last year. All right, let's get to the final ones here we have on the board too. So let's get after it. Ben Stevens, let's go to you. You've got something for the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? It was a pretty good start to the year for them. Talk about stomping a mud hole. Pretty good. All right, so your thoughts on the Cowboys this week in week 2 as we look on. Now they take on the next New York team. Just line up all those New York teams. Maybe we'll get the Knicks and the Liberty. We could get a whole bunch of other teams there. The Mets aren't doing anything. Yankees won't be doing anything either. So we can just line them up. Just let all the Cowboys have at the New York teams.
The Liberty in the postseason, by the way, probably going to play the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA Championship Series.
I'm going to have you on for the WNBA show.
We'll save that for another Betting Pro show, I am sure. Let's talk about this game, though, between the Jets and the Cowboys, right? It is post-Aaron Rodgers era already in New York, and they're a 9.5-point underdog. I actually think the Jets keep this game more competitive than a virtual double-digit spread would say. But the reason I think this game is competitive is because of the Jets defense that I think put on a performance for the ages in that second half to lead them to that comfort behind victory against Buffalo. The task for the Jets this year is going to be difficult to stay in games because the Jets are going to focus on the defensive side of the football until Zach Wilson figures it out, if, and it's a very big if, he ever figures it out. But I believe in the New York Jets defense, a top 10 unit in pretty much every metric a year ago, a top 4 scoring defense in the National Football League last year as well. I think the Jets can stay in this game, but I worry about just betting the 9.5 and taking the number with the New York Jets as the hefty underdog because I am concerned about this Zach Wilson-led offense finding its groove this early on, thrust into a situation that nobody offensively, including the play caller Nathaniel Hackett, ever anticipated at any point this year, certainly not week number 2. I think there's a world where Dallas stays under their team total, which is my approach. Cowboys under 23.5 for their team total, but could still possibly cover a 9.5 point spread. Like, is there a world this game is 21-6? Dallas wins in an ugly game? Sure. So I want to focus on thinking the Jets defense keeps this game more competitive than the odds would anticipate. I would focus on Dallas under 23.5.
I think this is going to be a fascinating referendum on Nathaniel Hackett and whether or not he can really do this job or not. Because it's one thing to, because kind of hide back with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and then you get overexposed, obviously, in that Denver job last year, which did not go well. Here you go. Here's Zach Wilson. Now what kind of OC are you? Now, I'm betting against him, of course, because I've seen enough to prepare myself for that. I got a question for you, too, Ben. Dallas Cowboys, I was talking about this yesterday with Andrew Erickson here on the show. Yep. They play next week the Arizona Cardinals. Is there a world where they don't give up an offensive touchdown the first 3 weeks of the season? That Dallas defense?
Certainly so. By the way, there's a game that also is like, kind of morbid curiosity to watch this week, and that's the Giants on the road in the desert against the Cardinals. I'm Arizona alternate win total under 3.5 with some plus money, so I did not enjoy seeing that game even within a touchdown against the Commanders, and I think the Cards got a lot of credit for keeping that game more competitive than initially anticipated. But that was against the Commanders, who also had a win total of 6.5.
And a fluky fumble 6, too.
Yeah. And so I think Arizona is going to be what we all expected, the worst team in the National Football League. I think the Giants actually cover as a 4.5 point favorite. And I think Arizona is going to have struggle scoring offensively. I think Dallas, the reason I thought Dallas would be around all year long. Like, I'm never going to bet the Cowboys to win an NFC championship until I see the Cowboys advance past the divisional round, something we haven't seen, of course, since 1995. But I know Dallas is going to be in the playoffs. I know Dallas is going to be a double-digit win football team, but a lot of that, I think, over the last 3 to 5 years has been, look at what Dak, Zeke, and CeeDee Lamb, or before that, whoever you wanted to throw in there, Amari Cooper as a wide receiver could do. This offense is going to lead the way. This year, I think it's the complete opposite. I think it's what we saw last year, keeping Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator in Big D. It is that Big D. It is that defense. Ooh, I almost said something I shouldn't have said. It is that defense for the Dallas Cowboys
that young quarterback
leading
in
the way.
Iowa, wasn't he? He was the one who said they were. What did he say? They were coming at him.
He said those boys are going to come a lot.
They're going to come a lot.
Sometimes
you got to ramp up the protection.
Form.
Yeah. And he was
always
my favorite clip
protection
of the week. Good on him for having a sense of humor about himself, and good for us too, because we didn't say that. He said that. Just a reminder, in case anyone's listening, we didn't say it. Wasn't us. Now, look, for all these props, don't forget, the most important thing is you go to the prop bet cheat sheet over on Betting Pros, where you have all of the games listed, all of the props listed against the Fantasy Pros projections for every single player on every single prop. And then right next to it is the best number you can get, and you can bet it right there. So if you're not using this app and you're not using the prop bet cheat sheet, the prop bet analyzer, you're just doing it wrong. So go ahead and do it. Utilize it. Download the app. Go to bettingpros.com. Just check it out. Look at that prop bet cheat sheet. That's going to set yourself up for success. Last one here, Erickson. Set us up for success here with your last prop for week 2.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to do Jake Ferguson anytime touchdown,
Let's go.
plus 360 over at FanDuel. And if you want even more, a bigger payout, first touchdown scored plus 1,400 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, when you look at Jake Ferguson, he led the Cowboys in targets in week 1, 28% target share, 7 targets, 43% target rate per route run. So basically, anytime Jake Ferguson was on the field, Dak Prescott was looking his way. and that was specifically in the red zone. He had 3 targets inside the 10-yard line. He played 11 snaps inside the 10-yard line. That tied for the most among all skilled players in week 1 with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. So I know that we're not going to see Dallas put up a massive total, but they're going to score a touchdown at some point unless their defense scores all the touchdowns. So for me, if I had to push my chips in on one guy, it's Jake Ferguson, because Dak Prescott was looking for him in the red zone in week 1. They didn't convert. I don't think that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. So that's my favorite anytime first touchdown scorer, Jake Ferguson for the Dallas Cowboys.
Dak Prescott, a long storied history of working with the tight end, right? Before it was Witten, then it was Schultz, right? Maybe there's a Blake Jarwin game somewhere in there, maybe years ago. I don't remember. But look, Ferguson, why not here? Just to recap what the guys have. Justin Fields, Ben has 169.5 passing yards. We're going over that. Calvin Ridley, 66.5 receiving yards, the over there as well. Then you've got George Kittle, anytime touchdown at plus 195. That's a great number. Love that. Can't wait to go do that. Right after the show, I'm running to BP to bet that. Amon-Ra St.Brown, the over on the reception, 6.5. Very close last week. Should get over that one. And of course, the Cowboys team total under 23.5. I'd love to say I agree with that one, but my fear is that Zach Wilson hands the defense a few scores, and that makes this one a little bit untenable. Then the DJ Moore on the Erickson side, over 3.5 receptions. Can lock that one up. It's a plus money on BetMGM. Do it right now. Deshaun Watson, 24.5 rushing yards. I think this one's a lock too. I feel like all yours are locks this week, Erickson, which is really frustrating to me.
I'm trying to make good picks.
You know, you're doing it's almost too good. You're setting the bar too high. It's getting a little frustrating. Drake London, under 49.5 receiving yards. CJ Stroud, over 12.5 rushing yards. And then Jake Ferguson, anytime touchdown, plus 360. And then if you want to go crazy, first touchdown scored, plus 1,400. And I want to go crazy. Of course, everybody goes crazy for Ben Stevens. You can check him out on the morning after, every single morning, Monday through Friday, over on Sports Grid. He's also hosting on the weekends too, because you're part of the big team on the weekends. Tell everybody what's going on there on Sports Grid. Big things right after my show. I'm the lead-in. I'm the warm-up act for Ben Stevens on Sundays. Yeah.
And we take that audience into what we do on College Football Today, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern time, each and every Saturday throughout college football season. It is our college football pregame show, 9 to noon. We do things a little bit differently that you won't see elsewhere. It is through the odds. It drives the conversation. We have a ton of fun. Myself, Kevin Walsh, and Joe Lisi, the beauty, the pageantry of college football with a new spin on it. So in that essence, if I may, one final prop for you in college football to pay attention to. Yo, Pete, tell me this comes out before Friday evening's games.
Maybe the audio at the very least. But either way, we can see if you're wrong. We can all make funny YouTube comments.
Great.
So let's do it anyway.
Great. Okay, so hopefully audio listeners, you will go bet Roman Hemby, the running back for Maryland, over 84.5 rushing yards tonight against Virginia, who has been torched up and down the ground game by both Tennessee and James Madison in their opening 2 games. Roman Hemby, one of 4 running backs in the illustrious Big Ten Conference to have 200 or more rushing yards so far this year. 84.5 to the over for Maryland's lead back.
You're the best there is, Ben Stevens. You can follow him on X at Ben Scott Stevens. And don't forget, everybody, drop a comment below when you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you can win that James Cook jersey, because we're giving that bad boy away. And don't forget to join our NFL contest too, bettingpros.com/NFL contest. Free stuff for all of you. But that's it. That's it for us. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and Ben Stevens, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.